Hello, everyone. This is Ashley Pitzer, your host with Practicing Live. All right, so today, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, I am in a little costume. Let me see if I can't bring this down a little bit. Voila, voila. Anyway, so I'm having fun today as we are approaching Halloween. This podcast is going to be on being magical. So, there's a little bit of a disappointment in this definition, but I am going to read it to you anyway. Google definition, where you get all your answers. Now, magic, the power of apparently influencing the course of events by using mysterious and supernatural forces. So this definition was really working for me until it got to supernatural forces. Here's the definition of supernatural forces: a phenomenon that does not follow the laws of nature. Now, that becomes really difficult because my podcast is going to be about being magical. I think we are all magical. I think this for two reasons. And this is, some of this is my belief, my perspective. But one, I think that we all innately are born with the spirit within us, like our soul, our presence. It comes from somewhere other than this, um body. It comes into this body, makes this body what it is, and it leaves this body when this body passes on. All right, so there's this whole aspect of that, like we are eternal. The spirit is eternal, not our body. So right, so this is one perspective I have. The other perspective too is just that, like, to me, like, God exists. And to me, we are all born with some aspect of God within us. Like, I like to think a lot about the Bible. And when Adam, and Eve were made, God breathed into them. So he gave them his spirit. So, and I think about also in baptism, like that seals us into the Holy Spirit, right? So even it doesn't matter what you believe, but from my perspective, like, we have these two amazing things that already happened to us. Like, our soul goes on, it goes on to heaven, or it goes on to another body, or whatever it is that you believe and do, that we may possibly have the spirit of God in us, even if it's a little fraction, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, it still exists. So the supernatural part is kind of a deal breaker here, but we're going to still talk about this from a different perspective. But when you think about supernatural and it meaning that it doesn't follow the laws of nature, almost everything in life has the law of nature to it. So we have like acts of God. Those are huge phenomenons that happen. And there are, a number of things that I consider magical, which I'll go into, but even that has a law of nature to it because it has the law that everything is mental. So for those of you who are out there that are spiritualists, you'll know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't, there is a belief system. Just like you have the law of gravity, what comes up must come down. There is another law out there that is everything is mental. We are all connected. Even if we're not physically connected in touch, we are connected spiritually in the sense that everything is mental. So our thoughts are projecting energy out into the world, and that is bumping into other people's thoughts and energy, and that keeps us all connected as if we are all one. Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about today, because it's fun, because I love Halloween, I love dressing up, and I just love fantasy world. Well, let me just say that I am a fantasy author. So if you didn't know that about me, I have a book that is going to be released. My intent is for it to be released just before Christmas time, and it's freaking phenomenal. It is such a magical book. I can't wait for you all to read it. And but the whole point is I absolutely love magical things, magical worlds, magical ideas, right? Because it's exciting, it's new, it's possibility. And when we talk about our 3D world, a lot of times we are talking about what is instead of what could be. And when you're living from what is, You stop creating what could be unless you're one of those people who still maintains that childhood imagination that's bringing it forward and being a creator. All of those artists out there that are connecting to their inner spirit that is able to create. Like, if there's one thing that God is outside of love, he is a freaking creator. He is creative. He's phenomenal, right? He is supernatural. And so when you think about life, like in my fantasy book, right, I am creating a whole new world for my characters to live in. And it's exciting and it's eye-opening and ah, it just takes you away from your suffering sometimes. I can't describe it. So when I talk about magic, I am talking about, first of all, the magic of your imagination. So when we talk about supernatural, these are things that I think scare a lot of people. So one of the things that is commonly heard in kind of the magical world, and I am, first of all, I am naive in a lot of the ways of the world to all of those out there that practice magic. There's so much that I know that they probably don't know, but likewise, there's so much I don't know. So I'm not going to sit here and profess things that I don't know. I'm just not even going to go there. So that is your little disclaimer right now. But there's so many things in life that people are scared of. And when they're scared of, they often label things. So one of the things that I hear a lot of is magic doesn't exist. If magic existed, scientists would be researching it and using it. But I really think in a lot of ways, I have two perspective on this. I think in a lot of ways that is not 100% true. I think what happens is that we become afraid of something, but when we name it and we label it and then we use it, then we are no longer scared of it. And therefore it's no longer magical, but it really still is magical. It's just now you're looking at it from your analytical brain instead of, your emotional brain. So when you think about medicine to me, the internet, right? Two things. Healing is freaking magical. And then the internet, I know that they have gone off and researched why it works, how it works. I don't know how it works. It's freaking magical to me. I love it. I'm glad it is in my life. Thank you. It's really phenomenal tool to have. But because we are able to label it, we're able to research into it, we no longer think of it as magical, but it is magical. And for most of us, we can't understand how it works. For most of us, we can't understand how electricity works. Yeah, there might be scientific documents on it, but that doesn't make it any less magical. So, when scientists or non-believers in magic talk about things, it's because they typically have a lot of fear around something. If they can't touch it, perceive it, think through it, analyze it, then that it is scary and fearful and magic doesn't exist. But the thing about it is like, to me, another, my perspective and take on it is everything that was created in this life comes from our imagination. And the way our brain works is so magical. It's one of the reasons why I am a hypnotist, because your brain is so powerful. So, in hypnotists, one of the stories that we learned, and I've gone through two different schools, so I've learned all these different stories, right? All these different studies. But there's been like phenomenons where you can use something like a quarter and you can put, while somebody is in hypnosis, you can put a quarter to their skin and then tell them that they have received a burn, and they will come out of hypnosis and they will have a burn on their skin. That is the power of your brain. Your power of your brain is magical. You can't always understand everything that happens. That in itself is magical. So your imagination is magical, and it is creating all of these magical things every day. When you think outside of the box, when you come up with a new idea that has never been done before, when you question something, that's magical to me. Okay, so that's just a different perspective that I may have that I'm sharing with you that you may be able to use. I think of art, whether that is like your painting, your storytelling, you're doing clay and creating pots and pans, whatever it may be, magical. It is magical to create things. I think of healing as 100% like magical, even if you're not using medicine. Like, but let's talk about that for a second. Like, science uses different types of pills and whatever it may be, congruent ingredients that come together and heal something like psoriasis or cancer or whatever it may be. But the thing is all it is trial and error where they're putting things together, they're trying different things until something works. Often, and you've seen this all the time in movies, so not that movies are reality, but you'll see this where in movies, uh, major findings have happened by accident. But really, are there any accidents in life? Because I am one of those people who happen to think that everything happens for a reason. There's no coincidences. So, but the point is, a lot of trial and error in medicine and pharmaceuticals happen because they're just trying different ingredients. And eventually something sticks and something goes right. The same way with creating the light, right? Like, um, Edison tried, I think, 700 times before he got it. So he was trying different things until it happened. To me, the light is freaking magical. So grateful for it. Candles are awesome too, but I love the simplicity of just being able to switch a flip or flip a switch and you have light. So those are three things that are really magical to me, but there's also intention and manifesting. So in my world, one of the things that I learned was a quote from Florence Shen that your word is your wand. I think your words are magic. Like God created the world through words, right? Let there be light, and there was light. Creating all the animals, he just said a word and it came into being. Okay, well, in our capabilities, what we are capable doing with whatever source that we have within us, we have the power to create with our words. And this is done through intention and manifesting. And I've talked about this before, but I'll say a little bit more today. So, your words, whatever you're saying to yourself internally, externally, what you're saying to others, you're creating your life all day long through your words. When I coach people on losing weight, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them, stop addressing yourself as fat. Stop saying I am fat. Your body is just a robot to what your mind says. So if your mind is giving the command, I am, which is an identity, I have the identity of being fat, is what you're saying. I am fat means I have the identity of being fat. Your body responds to that command because that's how powerful your brain is. That's how powerful your words are. So everything that you're speaking into your life. And if you have something that you want something in your life that you don't have right now, you have to change your stories. The stories that you're telling yourself, the perceptions that you have to shift that in order to get what you want. But then when you do, isn't that magical? And some people would argue it is, and some people would argue it isn't. And that's okay because we're all so unique and it's a beautiful thing. But the power of prayer, isn't that magical? We rely on it. So many people rely on the power of prayer. Lots of phenomenons happening around this. All that is your words. For all of you out there that consider yourself a sorcerer or witch, whatever you may label yourself along like that, You're spell casting with your words. This is why I talk about, who you hang out with is so important. I, you know, I have to talk to people. I have to address things even in my friendships with people because if they say something like, "Oh, don't do that, you're gonna fail." I have to be like, "Whoa, why are you wishing bad on me?" And they don't think of it as wishing bad on them. They're like, "I'm just being practical. I'm being realistic." No, you're creating an outcome for me in your mind. Do not do that. If you care about me and you love me, then you wouldn't create a negative image in your mind about something I'm going forward to doing. You would love me enough to see possibility or not think anything at all, you know? And I don't control them. They're allowed to think what they want to think. But the point is I'm going to talk to them about not bringing it into my reality. I don't need that in my life. I don't need to counter their words and their negativities. I've even had this with um like church leaders that say things like, don't do this. This is like why people who have gone to AA, sometimes they really struggle with this because they have to label themselves and constantly live in this like shame of I am an alcoholic, even when they're no longer an alcoholic. They're still saying this. Now, there is I think a distortion there, and I've never been through AA, so I don't know, but I have definitely heard one person speak out against this and say that it's just a faultiness of what they're saying, like wording it wise. But for the people that I know in my personal life, they word it as I am a recovering alcoholic if they have done enough inner work to readdress that. Okay, so I think that just music and the way that it can change your mood is magical. When I work out or when I'm teaching a fitness class, right, I'm going to use the right type of music that motivates people, whether that is yoga, where I'm going to put in something calm and gentle, or whether that is me like powerlifting and I'm going to put in something more like heavy metalish, right? Music motivates you. It brings you to a different state of being. And that to me is magical. I love fantasy books. I love fantasy books in particular, but for other people, this will apply to whatever genre you like. When you read a book, you stop thinking about it just being words on a page. And all of a sudden, you're envisioning with your imagination who the characters are, what they look like, what the scene is. And, like, and for instance, I let my sister read my book that's coming out. And we were talking about one of the characters, and she was like, "Now, I know that you said this character, has auburn hair, but in my mind, this character has red curly hair," right? Like, you know, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. All right. So there's a lot of things going on. I just wanted to remind you that just because you may not be able to explain something away doesn't make it any less magical. And even if you are able to explain something away, that doesn't take away from its magic. The power of your brain is amazing. That in itself is magical. When you get into a zone, for all of those of you that have had runner's high, when you get into like your artistic creative abilities, you get into this zone, and that is magical. So it doesn't matter if you can explain it away or not. It just is, what story are you telling yourself? What perception do you want to have? To me, you are magical. To me, you can create the life that you want. You can use your intention. You can put your desire for something and work towards it. All right, you guys, have a really great Halloween. Enjoy dressing up and seeing all the kids out there. And I will see you next week. You matter.